Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today, the topic I picked for today actually comes as a result of last week's episode. So, if you had a chance to listen or hopefully watch last week's episode, then you would have seen the chaos and disaster that happened. So, basically, my son got dropped off earlier than I thought he was going to. Dogs went crazy, everyone was barking, it was nuts. So, but I chose to continue and record the episode and just go with the crazy. So, as I was sitting here just a few minutes ago trying to decide what I wanted to do this week's episode about, I was just thinking about last week and how all that went and decided that a good topic for us to talk about would be priorities. So, the reason I say it's coming from last week is because in the couple of seconds that I acknowledged or that my brain registered that my son was getting dropped off, like I looked over at the door, saw his reflection through the glass, the dogs were barking. As my brain processed that real quick, I realized I had a choice. I could stop recording and, figure out a different time to do this because it would be probably better not to have barking dogs in the background. Or I could continue to do what I was doing. I didn't have a lot of other time that I could budget in my schedule to record, and my kid was home. So I decided to prioritize not taking up another chunk of time somewhere else that would have taken from my week, my family, all of that, and just go with the time that I had carved out to record, which is the time that we were recording at the time. So that in that moment, I decided quickly that I had to prioritize not giving up any other time, not stressing myself out to try to find other time, not taking time away from my family at a different time because this was technically part of my work time that I had picked out. I was working from home, so all my worlds kind of collided in that moment. But that decision was partially made with a priority in mind that I didn't want to put myself through this stress or the takeaway from family to find a different time to stop when I was mostly done with the episode and redo it. I just didn't want to do that. So, the topic of priorities is really important to me. I think that so much of life's stress or struggles come about because we are not always clear on what our priorities are. Either we don't know what our priorities are, or we have priorities maybe that are misplaced and they're not great for us, and maybe we prioritize the wrong thing. And as a result, that can lead to problems. And the problems could be immediate or they could be months or years down the road where we realize, like, well, if I had just prioritized the right thing or focused on the right thing, then maybe this wouldn't happen. And there's no way to predict anything when it comes to choices. Like, we can't guarantee that the choices that we make are going to be the right choices for now or for later. We can make a decision that we think is the best at the time, and then later we realize was the wrong decision. There's just no way to perfectly manage that. Nothing that anyone says or does is ever going to change that. We make decisions based on the information we have in front of us, and just we hope that we are really thinking things through appropriately and accurately and all of that. However, I do think that there are a lot of times where we don't take the time to think things through and we don't consider parts of the equation or aspects of our lives when we are making decisions. And the example I gave of last week, that was kind of an extreme example. That's not something that happens a lot, right? Very rarely do I find myself in a position where I'm having to make a quick family versus work decision in the moment when I'm being recorded on camera. Like, that doesn't happen. But there are times where I'm having to make a decision between work and family. That happens regularly. I run a business. I'm starting a second business. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. A ton of dogs, apparently. And so I have things that I'm constantly having to make decisions about. Some of these decisions fall squarely on me and no one else can help with them. I am responsible. But most other decisions, I would say I share my husband and I are both responsible for those decisions and things like that. And so, but either way, there are things that I have to really consider based on what I prioritize. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day about the episode, and I kind of, if you listened, if you just did the audio, then I had a second introduction that kind of gave you a heads up about what was happening. And one of the things I said in the second introduction was that part of the reason that I decided to go with it was I'm a mom first and a business owner second, or a podcaster second, or a therapist, whatever. Mom first. And I stand by that. And as I was having this conversation with this person about, like, well, hey, what do you think people will think of this episode? The fact that you had kids and, a kid and dogs and all this chaos, it wasn't really professional. And my perspective on that was, I don't actually care. And that's not a disrespectful, I don't care. It's my priority will always be my family. Yes, I have to make very professional business decisions every single day by being a business owner. However, the choices I have made in the way I run my business are choices that support my family, in the sense that, excuse me, the time I dedicate to my business works for me, so that my first priority is my family. I'm available for all the things I need to be available for. I move my schedule around to allow me to be present in as many ways as I possibly can. Of course, there are things that, I can't be there all day long, but I try not to miss out on field trips and meetings and, special events and sports and things. I'm there for all of that, unless there's something crazy going on. But I recognize that not everyone has that flexibility, and by no means do I extend any judgment or any negative thought whatsoever to people that can't do that. Priorities are different for every person. There's nothing wrong with someone else choosing to prioritize things differently than I choose to prioritize them. That's just personal preference. That's just life. Sometimes it's not even a choice. Sometimes it's just an obligation. Some people, no matter what they do, no matter what they want, they cannot prioritize family over work because their job does not allow for that. And that's just circumstantial, right? There's nothing we can do about that. And I'm not trying to get into any kind of realm here where I'm telling you what to do at all, as far as, what's right and what's wrong. That's very subjective. Whatever you feel fits you and fits your family, that's all I can, encourage you to do. But I think that what I am trying to say is, are you doing things that do leave you feeling good and happy with the way that you're prioritizing your life? If you have the ability to be flexible, to be available for your family, to prioritize things that are important, do you do that? Do you take the time to really consider what your priorities are, what your priorities should be, and do you act on that? Do you make decisions based on that, or do you make decisions in a way that doesn't really reflect your priorities or your family values or whatever? And so that's my challenge to you, is to really encourage you to think about, what are your priorities? And then once you have those kind of outlined, really asking yourself, what are you doing to try to actually act on those priorities and make decisions that support your priorities? If you have a job that does not allow any flexibility, then you're going to have to really decide, is this a good fit for you, or are you unhappy and miserable in the fact that you're missing out on so much stuff that you really need to explore a career change or a job change, or just make some tweaks where you can. If you're happy with it, you really don't mind the things that you're not present for with your family, and it really works for your family. Maybe you guys have a system where you and your partner, your spouse, split responsibilities, and it's really not a big deal. Then don't worry about it. But if you do feel bad about it, if it is something that bothers you, if it is something that you feel guilty about or unhappy about, then my challenge to you is to really consider it. And part of why I'm saying this to you is that I've worked with a lot of people that experience this unhappiness or unfulfillment or guilt because they are not able to be there for the things that they want to be there. They don't feel like their priorities are in the right place. And so part of the conversation we end up having is, well, what can you do about it? What are your options? And for some people, the options are, maybe a little limited and we have to get creative. But for I would say most people that I have this conversation with, there is a lot of flexibility. There is a lot of work that can be done, but it does require intentional prioritizing, taking the time, investing the energy to move things around. And it can be kind of inconvenient. It's not easy for me or convenient for me to have to move clients. If I've set my schedule 3 months out, right? So if I have someone scheduled 3 months from now, and it's not until the week before that I find out there's something that my son has going on that I really need to be present for, that's a pain for me to text this person or call this person and have to find a different spot in a schedule that for me is already pretty full. But my priority is to make that happen. I could say, well, it's going to be too difficult. I'm not going to deal with it. But what I end up doing is saying, I want to do this. This is important to me. And usually it ends up working. There are times where I just have to disappoint someone and say, listen, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel this appointment. I have something to do with my son. And going back to what I was saying earlier, I was having this conversation with someone about what if people don't like that? That's a compromise or a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I would hate to lose business. I would hate to lose clients. I would hate to have anyone think less of the way I run my business. But at the end of the day, if the people I work with cannot understand that my family, my son will always be my priority, my husband, that's probably not the kind of person I need to be working with anyway. There will be another professional that can help them maybe better than I can. And that's not something that I'm afraid to admit. I'm not for everyone. Not everyone is going to love my style. I would like to think I'm pretty proud of the businesses that I've built and the things that I've done. I've thankfully very successful, but I have a good support system. My husband, my team, my therapist, my assistant, like we work together to make this work. But that I am always with the therapists that work with me, my priority for them is their family. If you come to work with me, you're coming with the understanding that, hey, we have these professional things that we need to accomplish and we have these goals that we're going to work towards, but we're going to do it while working around your family. If you come and work with me, that is your priority. Your priority is your family. I'm going to support that as your priority, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you professionally be successful, make money, and do all those things. I will always prioritize family first. What is your priority? Do you prioritize your family first? Do you prioritize your children, your spouse? And again, I'm not saying this to you to judge you by any means if you don't. There are lots of different reasons that some people cannot and do not want to. That is just, those are details that I don't know. Those are details that don't matter to me. It's personal preference to you. But do you do the things to prioritize what matters most in your life? And I think a lot of you, as you listen to this, you know what your priorities are. You understand what you want to focus on. You may not know how to create those changes to support that, or you might. And then there are some people listening to this that may not have a clear grasp on what their priorities are. And I hope for you, if that is you, that this really challenges you to figure that out. Because if you are walking through life not knowing what your priorities are, then there's a chance that you're not really feeling fulfilled, that you're just going about the day, going through the motions, doing the things that you need to do out of habit, not so much out of intention or purpose. And I think to live a really truly fulfilled life, we have to have purpose. We have to experience fulfillment. Not every day is 100% filled with all the happiness and butterflies and rainbows, but for the most part, you should be experiencing joy and happiness and fulfillment in your life. There are things that could be going on that are, tragedies or grief or loss that might interfere with that. But I'm talking about for the average person that doesn't experience extreme situations on a day-to-day basis, that's just living a life of somewhat average operation. There should be a reasonable amount of happiness, fulfillment, purpose. If you don't have those things, I would encourage you to prioritize finding out what those things are, because it's a domino effect. If you don't know what drives you and what makes you happy and what helps you feel fulfilled, then your chances are your relationships aren't really great. You may not be the kind of parent or spouse that you want to be. You may not be working with the right motivation or attitude at your job. Like all these things come together and they really work together. they create this picture of your life. But to fully view the picture and to feel good about the picture and for the pieces to fit right together, you do have to understand what your priorities are. Then you have to make a decision to really try to achieve um, just meeting the needs of your life, of those priorities. So all that to say, you have to kind of take the lead on that in your own life. Someone else can't determine your priorities for you. You have to do that yourself. It's a good conversation to have with a spouse. Sometimes we need to have conversations with our significant others to make sure as a family we're prioritizing right. Are we spending quality time together? Is the family overall making an effort, or all members of the family making an effort to invest in each other and spend time together? um, are both members of, if you're in a relationship, are you both equally invested in um, respecting each other and spending time together, making time for each other, managing your finances? Are your priorities in the way you run your home, in the way you manage your marriage, the way you manage your parenting, your family, your business, your extended family, are those in line with your values? Are those in line with the person that you share your life with, whether it's a partner or other family member? Um, are you doing things in a way that really leaves you feeling good about how you're spending your time, how you're spending your energy, how you're spending your money? Money is a big one. A lot of people run into obstacles where they don't prioritize the right things when it comes to finances. Maybe they don't follow a budget that they've set, or just a general kind of understanding of where their money needs to go. And so they end up in situations where there's hardship financially, and they're struggling, and they don't know how to get back on track, or they don't understand what prioritizing financially really looks like. So you have to get support, and you have to, ask for help from a professional, maybe a financial advisor, whatever. But some of these things can just be small conversations where you sit and you look at the facts and you say, hey, I have these things in my life that are important, and these are the top 5 most important things in my life. Yet I'm spending so much of my time over here doing these things and not on the things that are important to me, or the things that are my priority. And one of the difficulties that we run into as parents and just adults in general is sometimes things that we need to prioritize are things that take away from maybe personal desire, right? So if you are a parent, then your parenting, your role as a parent, is one of the most important roles in your life. And it comes with a lot of work, it comes with a lot of sacrifice, it comes with a lot of energy, and it comes with a lot of inconvenience. Sometimes you have to take care of your kid instead of maybe going to do something fun, or taking a nap, or watching a movie, or playing on your phone. You have to care for this human that is dependent on you. And that is just part of the choice that we make to become parents. We make choices that then warrant us having certain priorities in our lives. And if we can't see that correlation, if we can't see that our decisions come with certain responsibilities, then we're going to set ourselves up for failure and struggle and all of that. We have to acknowledge that with responsibility, or with choices, come responsibilities, and with responsibilities come priorities. And we're not always going to be able to prioritize the things that we really would like to prioritize. Sometimes what we prioritize is just what we have to prioritize. And usually that's a temporary thing, right? If you choose to have a kid, then the way that you spend your time with them when they're infants and literally need you to eat and function is different than how you spend your time with your 14-year-old kid, who is more independent and doesn't need you as much to survive. So, we go through some changes in priorities, and that's something that you want to think about too, is as you grow and your family evolves, you have to modify your priorities. You change the way you invest your time and your energy, because the demands of your life also change. So it's just, big picture things to think about. It's good to be talking about this with your spouse or the person you share your life with, but it's also good within yourself to recognize that this is an ever-changing and growing thing. And if it's not working for you, if the way you live your life is not leaving you fulfilled, satisfied, or just if you're not focusing on the right things, then maybe you need to take a minute and explore and redefine what the important things in your life are so that you can make some changes. If maybe you've outgrown something yet you still spend a lot of time on it, well, that's a waste now. You have to now take time away from this thing because it's not important enough anymore, or it's not important anymore, it doesn't require energy, and now dedicate that time to something else because there's this new priority or this new responsibility. So all that is good stuff to think about. I hope it gives you something to consider as you explore your own priorities and how you make your decisions. And I'm going to wrap up here. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye bye.